Imagine a quiet village where shadows hide secrets, and a single whisper can unravel a mystery. In St. Mary Mead, a strange shadow moves at dusk, and Miss Marple's sharp eyes catch what no one else sees. Ready to uncover the truth with her? Let's dive in. Hey there, mystery lovers. Welcome to St. Mary Mead, a charming little village where the roses bloom. The tea's always hot, and secrets lurk in every corner. I'm thrilled to bring you into Miss Marple's world, where nothing's ever quite as cozy as it seems. If you're ready for a tale of intrigue and clever sleuthing, hit that like button and let's get started. Today, we're kicking off with a strange sighting that sets the stage for a mystery only Miss Marple can solve. St. Mary Mead is the kind of place where time moves slowly. The high street hums with familiar faces, Mrs. Baker at the bakery, Mr. Green tending his roses, and young Sally delivering eggs on her bicycle. But Miss Jane Marple, our favourite silver-haired sleuth, knows that beneath this picture-perfect calm, there's always something brewing. She's in her cottage, knitting by the window, watching the world go by. Miss Marple's not your typical detective, no badge, no fancy gadgets, just a pair of sharp eyes and a mind that misses nothing. She's spent years studying the villagers, knowing that Mr. Green only polishes his shoes when he's nervous, or that Mrs. Baker's smile tightens when she's hiding something. And lately, she's noticed something odd, a shadow moving down Willow Lane at dusk, too tall and too quick to belong to anyone local. Let's set the scene. It's a cool evening, and Miss Marple's sipping tea, her knitting needles clicking softly. Willow Lane, a narrow path behind the church, is usually empty after sunset. But for 3 nights in a row, she's seen that shadow of figure in a long coat, slipping past the hedgerows, gone before she can get a good look. The villagers haven't noticed. They're too busy with their daily routines. But Miss Marple knows a clue when she sees one. She starts asking around, casually, over tea at Mrs. Baker's shop, seen anyone new on Willow Lane. She asks, her tone light. Mrs. Baker shakes her head, but her smile's a bit too quick. Sally, the egg girl, pipes up. I saw someone there last night, Miss Tall, with a funny hat, like in the pictures. Miss Marple nods, tucking that detail away. A funny hat. That's something to work with. Now, why does this shadow matter? In a village like St. Mary Mead, strangers stand out. Everyone knows, everyone's business or thinks they do. A new face, especially one skulking at dusk, means trouble. Miss Marple's seen this before. A stranger passing through once sparked a scandal about missing church funds. This shadow feels different, though more deliberate, like it's searching for something. She's thinking about the old vicarage at the end of Willow Lane, empty since Reverend Hale retired. It's a big, creaky place, full of dusty rooms and locked cupboards. Could the shadow be tied to it? She decides to keep watch tonight, from her garden, where she can see the lane without being seen. Let's talk about how Miss Marple works her magic. She's not flashy. She doesn't chase suspects or wave a magnifying glass. Her strength is observation. She notices the little things, how Sally fidgets when she talks about the stranger, or how Mr. Green's been pruning the same rosebush for days, always glancing toward the lane. These are the crumbs she follows. For example, yesterday, she saw Mrs. Baker drop a letter outside the shop, addressed to someone at the vicarage. No one lives there now, so why the letter? Miss Marple doesn't confront anyone yet. She's patient, letting the puzzle pieces fall into place. Want to think like her? Here's a tip. Pay attention to what doesn't fit. A letter to an empty house, a shadow in a quiet lane, those are the sparks that start a mystery. As night falls, Miss Marple sets up in her garden, hidden behind a lilac bush. The lane is dark, the village silent, except for an owl hooting nearby. Then, there it is, the shadow, moving fast, pausing at the vicarage gate. She squints, catching the outline of a wide-brimmed hat and a long coat. The figure fumbles with something, a key, maybe, then slips through the gate. Miss Marple's heart races, but she stays put. Rushing in would scare them off. Instead, she notes the time, the way the figure moves, and the faint clink of metal. By morning, she's ready to dig deeper, starting with a visit to the vicarage to see what the shadow was after. The village is already whispering. Sally tells everyone about the funny hat man, and Mrs. Baker's quick to hush her, saying, "It's just a vagrant." Mr. Green, though, is quieter than usual, his eyes darting to the lane. Miss Marple knows these reactions are clues, too. She's building a mental map of St. Mary Mead, with the shadow at its centre. Whatever's happening, it's tied to the vicarage, and she's determined to find out why. What's next? In our next chapter, Miss Marple will step into the vicarage, where a dusty clue will point to a secret the village has forgotten, but someone's desperate to uncover. It's going to get juicy, so stick around. If you're loving this mystery, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to catch the next chapter. Comment below, have you spotted a shadow in your own life that didn't belong? Let's keep sleuthing together. The moon casts a pale glow over St. Mary Mead, turning Willow Lane into a ribbon of shadows that seems to whisper secrets. Miss Marple's sighting of the mysterious figure in the wide-brimmed hat, slipping into the old vicarage, has her curiosity on fire. The village is buzzing with Sally's tales of the funny hat man. But Mrs. Baker's quick hush and Mr. Green's nervous glances tell Miss Marple there's more to this than a passing vagrant. Armed with her sharp instincts and a knack for spotting what others miss, she's ready to step into the vicarage to uncover what the shadow was after. Today, we're diving into a dusty discovery that ties the stranger to a forgotten secret, pulling us deeper into this cozy mystery. If you're hooked on this suspenseful tale, smash that like button and let's follow Miss Marple into the eerie halls. The old vicarage sits at the end of Willow Lane, its windows boarded, its garden choked with weeds. Once home to Reverend Hale, it's been empty for years, a silent giant that villagers avoid after dark. Miss Marple, in her tweed coat and sensible shoes, approaches at mid-morning when the village is busy and prying eyes are distracted. She's got a key borrowed from Mr. Clement, the new vicar, who warned her the place is a bit spooky. The door creaks as she steps inside, the air thick with dust and the smell of old books. Her flashlight beam dances across cobwebbed furniture, a sagging staircase, and a hallway lined with faded portraits of stern-faced clergy. She's not here to sightsee, she's hunting for whatever drew the stranger here last night, that clink of metal still echoing in her mind. Let's explore the vicarage with her. Miss Marple starts in the study, where Reverend Hale kept his records. The desk is piled with mouldy ledgers, but she notices one drawer slightly ajar, as if someone rifled through it recently. Inside, she finds a bundle of old letters, yellowed and tied with twine, addressed to a Miss Eliza Thorne. The name rings a faint bell. Mrs. Baker mentioned Annalisa years ago, a vicarage maid who left suddenly. The letters are from a man named James, begging Eliza to keep it hidden and meet me in London. Miss Marple's pulse quickens. Could it be what the stranger was after? She tucks the letters into her bag, noting fresh fingerprints. In the dust, someone's been here, and not long ago. Here's where Miss Marple's genius kicks in. She doesn't just collect clues. She reads the story they tell. The fingerprints suggest the stranger was searching the study, and the letters point to a secret Eliza carried. Miss Marple's thinking about Sally's story of the funny hat. Man and the clink of metal may be a key or a tool to pry something open. She moves to the upstairs, checking the maid's old room. The floorboards creak underfoot, and she spots a loose one near the bed. Lifting it, she finds a small tin box, rusted but intact, with a tiny lock. Her heart skips it, not big enough to hold much, but it's a start. The key from the stranger's clink doesn't fit, but the box feels like a piece of the puzzle. Want to sleuth like Miss Marple? Here's a tip. Look for what's out of place: a drawer left open, a floorboard loose. Those are the cracks where secrets hide. Back in the village, the gossip's heating up. Mrs. Baker's at her shop, serving tea and denying she knows anything about strangers, but her tight smile betrays her. Sally, delivering eggs, swears she saw the figure again, this time near the church, carrying a small bag. Mr. Green's rose pruning has gotten obsessive, his eyes always on Willow Lane. Miss Marple hears these snippets over lunch at the bakery, her mind cataloguing every detail. She's also thinking about that letter Mrs. Baker dropped, addressed to the empty vicarage. Was it meant for Eliza Thorne, or someone connected to her? Miss Marple decides to ask Mrs. Baker directly, but gently she knows pushing too hard makes people clam up at the bakery. Mrs. Baker's apron twisting goes into overdrive when Miss Marple mentions Eliza Thorne. Oh, Eliza, she was a maid, left years ago. Flighty thing, Mrs. Baker says, too quickly. Miss Marple nods, sipping her tea, and casually asks about the dropped letter. Mrs. Baker's face flushes. She claims it was a mistake, meant for the new vicar. Miss Marple doesn't press, but she's sure Mrs. Baker's hiding something. She's also curious about Mr. Green, who's been seen lingering near the vicarage gate. Could he know about Eliza's secret, or the stranger's mission? Miss Marple's mental map of St. Mary Mead is growing, with the vicarage at its heart and threads leading to Eliza, the stranger, and maybe even Mrs. Baker. Let's dive deeper into the tin box. Back home, Miss Marple examines it under her lamp. It's small, no bigger than a book, with a scratched lock that suggests someone tried to force it open. She doesn't pry it, yet she's learned patience is key. Instead, she reads the letters. Again, finding one with a date, 1918, just before Eliza left. It mentions a gift James gave her, something too precious to lose. Miss Marple's mind razzes, could the tin hold this gift? And is it what the stranger's after? She thinks about the vicarage's history. Reverend Hale was strict, and Eliza's sudden departure sparked gossip about a scandal. Was she hiding something for James, maybe tied to the stranger's search? The village is on edge now. Sally's tales of the funny hat man have spread, and Mr. Clement's worried about the vicarage being targeted. Miss Marple hears Mr. Green muttering about old ghosts while pruning, and Mrs. Baker's avoiding her usual chatty customers. Miss Marple's not rattle cheese, used to nervous villagers. She's planning to watch Willow Lane again tonight, betting the stranger will return to the vicarage. She also wants to talk to Mr. Green, whose rose obsession feels like a cover for something. Here's another tip. When people act nervous, like Mrs. Baker or Mr. Green, don't confront them head on. Ask simple questions and watch their reactions. Those are your real clues. By evening, Miss Marple's back in her garden, eyes on the lane. The tin box and letters are safe in her cottage, but she's itching to know what's inside. The vicarage looms dark, and as the clock strikes 9, she sees the shadow, again same hat, same coat, moving toward the gate. This time, she's ready to follow, not just watch. The mystery is tightening, and she's one step closer to the truth. What's next? In our next chapter, Miss Marple will tale the stranger, leading to a startling discovery that links Eliza Thorne to a long-buried scandal. It's getting twistier, so don't miss it. If you're loving this suspenseful ride, hit that like button and subscribe to catch the next chapter. Comment below, what do you think's in that tin box? Let's keep sleuthing together. The twilight deepens over St. Mary Mead, casting Willow Lane in a hush that feels alive with secrets. Miss Marple's discovery of the tin box and Eliza Thorne's letters in the old vicarage has her senses sharpened. The stranger in the wide-brimmed hat, slipping through the vicarage gate, is no random wanderer. She's sure he's after something tied to Eliza's mysterious gift from James, mentioned in those dusty letters. The village is restless, with Mrs. Baker's nervous denials, Mr. Green's obsessive rose pruning, and Sally's wide-eyed tales of the funny hat man fueling the gossip. Miss Marple, ever the patient sleuth, is ready to take a bold step, tailing the stranger to uncover his purpose. Today, we're following her into the shadows, where a startling discovery links Eliza to a scandal that's been buried for years. If you're hooked on this cozy mystery, smash that like button and let's chase the truth together. Miss Marple, back in her garden, hidden behind the lilac bush, her eyes locked on Willow Lane. The tin box and letters are safely tucked in her cottage, but her mind's on the stranger. Last night, she saw him at the vicarage gate, fumbling with what sounded like a key. The letter's mention of Eliza Thorne and a gift from James, dated 1918, suggest a secret worth hiding and worth seeking. Miss Marple's thinking about Mrs. Baker's dropped letter to the empty vicarage, and Mr. Green's nervous glances toward the lane. Could they know about Eliza's past? She's also curious about Sally's story of the stranger with a small bag, maybe a tool to break into. Tonight, she's not just watching. She's ready to follow, her sensible shoes silent on the grass. Let's set the scene. It's just past 9, and the village is quiet, save for the distant bark of a dog. Miss Marple, in her dark tweed coat, blends into the shadows as she creeps toward Willow Lane. The vicarage looms, its boarded windows like closed eyes. She spots the stranger, tall, wide-brimmed hat, long coat slipping through the gate again. He's moving faster tonight, glancing over his shoulder. Miss Marple keeps her distance, her heart steady despite the thrill. He heads to the vicarage's back door, where she hears that clink of metal, again a key. She's sure, but it doesn't work. The stranger curses softly, then pulls out a small crowbar, prying at the door. Miss Marple's mind races. He's desperate, and whatever's inside is worth breaking in for. She follows him into the vicarage garden, staying low behind a hedge. The stranger forces the door open and slips inside. Miss Marple waits a moment, then creeps closer, peering through a cracked window. Inside, he's in the study, rummaging through the same desk where she found Eliza's letters. He pulls out a drawer, tossing papers aside, and finds a small ledger missed by Miss Marple yesterday. He flips through it, muttering, then tucks it into his coat. Miss Marple's itching to confront him, but she knows timing is everything. Instead, she memorizes his movements, the way he limps slightly, the glint of a ring on his left hand. Want a sleuth like Miss Marple? Here's a tip. When tailing someone, note their quirks, how they walk, what they touch. Those details can Identify them later. The stranger slips out, heading down Willow Lane toward the church. Miss Marple follows, keeping to the shadows. He stops at the churchyard, near an old gravestone, and kneels, pulling out the ledger. Under the moonlight, she sees him tear out a page, stuff it into his bag, and bury the ledger under a loose stone. This is Huger, deliberate attempt to hide something. She waits until he's gone, then retrieves the ledger. It's a parish record from 1918, listing baptisms and burials. But one entry stands out. Eliza Thorne, marked as departed suddenly, no family. Tucked in the ledger is a note in the same handwriting as the letters. James, the gift is safe in the vicarage. Meet me at the oak, the oak. There's a massive oak tree in the churchyard, its roots sprawling like fingers. Let's dive into what this means. The note ties Eliza's gift to the vicarage and the oak tree, suggesting the strangers, after it may be the tin box, or something bigger. The ledger's burial shows he's covering his tracks, but why? Miss Marple's thinking about Eliza's sudden exit in 1918, the gossip about a scandal, and Mrs. Baker's nervousness when her name came up. Could the gift be tied to that scandal? She's also recalling Mr. Green's odd behaviour, his rose pruning near the lane, his eyes on the vicarage. Does he know about the oak tree, or James? Sally's story of the stranger's bag nags at her too, maybe. It holds tools to dig under the oak. Back in the village, the gossip's electric. Mrs. Baker's avoiding questions, claiming she's too busy to chat, but her apron twisting is worse than ever. Sally tells everyone the stranger was near the church, and Mr. Green snaps at her to mind her own business. Miss Marple hears these updates over tea at the bakery, her mind cataloguing every hint. She visits Mr. Green next, asking casually about the churchyard oak. His face pales, and he mumbles about old trees holding old secrets. It's vague, but enough to confirm he's involved. Miss Marple's mental map is growing. The stranger, Eliza's gift, the oak tree, and now Mr. Green, all circling a scandal from 1918. Here's another tip for budding detectives. When you find a clue, like that ledger, think about why it was hidden. The stranger didn't destroy it. He buried it, meaning he might come back. Miss Marple decides to check the oak tree herself, but not tonight, it's too risky with the stranger nearby. Instead, she takes the ledger and note home, adding them to her collection. The tin box, still unopened, sits on her table, its lock taunting her. She's tempted to force it open, but knows patience is her strength. She's also wondering about Mrs. Baker's dropped letter. Could it be linked to James, or even the stranger? By morning, St. Mary Mead is buzzing. Mr. Clement, the vicar, is worried about the vicarage break-in, and Mrs. Baker's spreading a story that it was just kids. Miss Marple knows better. She's planning to visit the oak tree at dawn, before the village wakes, to see what's buried there. The stranger's limp and ring are burned in her mind. She's close to identifying him, the mystery's tightening, and she's ready to pull the next thread. What's next? In our next chapter, Miss Marple will dig under the oak tree, uncovering a clue that ties Eliza's scandal to a shocking village secret. It's getting intense, so don't miss it. If you're loving this twisty mystery, hit that like button and subscribe to catch the next chapter. Comment below, what's the stranger hiding under that oak? Let's keep sleuthing together. The early morning mist swirls around St. Mary Mead, cloaking Willow Lane and the churchyard in a ghostly haze that seems to guard its secrets. Miss Marple's late-night pursuit of the stranger in the wide-brimmed hat has left her with a parish ledger a cryptic note about Eliza Thorne's gift hidden at the vicarage, and a clue pointing to the ancient oak tree in the churchyard. The stranger's desperate rummaging in the vicarage and his burial of the ledger under a gravestone tell her he's closing in on something valuably and dangerous. The village is alive with whispers, Mrs. Baker's nervous denials, Mr. Green's cryptic mutterings about old trees, and Sally's tales of the funny hat man are all threads in Miss Marple's growing tapestry. Today, we're joining her as she digs beneath the oak tree, uncovering a clue that ties Elisa's 1918 scandal to a shocking secret threatening to unravel St. Mary Mead. If you're gripped by this cozy mystery, smash that like button and let's unearth the truth together. Miss Marple is up before dawn, her parlour table a map of clues, the locked tin box from the vicarage, Eliza's letters mentioning a gift from James, the parish ledger with its note about meeting at the oak, and her memory of the stranger's limp and glinting ring. She's certain the oak tree holds the next piece of the puzzle. But she's cautious the stranger's crowbar and desperate search suggest he's not far behind. She's also thinking about Mrs. Baker's dropped letter to the empty vicarage and Mr. Green's odd comment about old secrets in the churchyard. Could they be tied to Eliza's sudden departure in 1918? Miss Marple slips on her dark tweed coat, grabs a small gardening trowel, and heads to the churchyard, moving quietly to avoid curious eyes like Sally's or Mr. Green's. The churchyard is silent, the oak tree's gnarled roots sprawling like a giant's fingers under the faint glow of sunrise. Miss Marple kneels near the base, where the soil looks recently disturbed fresh earth, not yet settled by rain. She digs carefully, her trowel scraping softly, mindful of the stranger's return. After a few minutes, her trowel hits something harder, small, leather-bound case, no bigger than a cigar box, buried shallowly. Her heart races as she pulls it free, brushing off dirt to reveal a faded monogram. J.T. James Thorne, perhaps. The case is locked, its clasp scratched as if someone tried to force it open. It's too heavy for papers alone, hinting at something valuable inside. Miss Marple tucks it into her bag, glancing around to ensure she's alone. Let's talk about why this find is huge. The note in the ledger said, "The gift is safe in the vicarage. Meet me at the oak." If this case is the gift, it connects Eliza's scandal to the stranger's search. Miss Marple's mind is buzzing. The tin box from the vicarage didn't hold much, but this case feels different, weightier, more significant. She's thinking about Eliza's sudden exit, the gossip, about a scandal, and James's letters begging her to keep it hidden. Was the gift stolen or something personal? She's also recalling the stranger's crowbar marks on the vicarage door and the ledger's burial. He's been one step behind her, searching for this case. Want to sleuth like Miss Marple? Here's a tip. When you find a buried clue, consider why it was hidden there. The oak's a landmark, easy to find but hard to suspect, perfect for a secret. Back in the village, the tension's thick. Mrs. Baker's bakery is abuzz with gossip about the vicarage break-in, but she's quick to blame village kids, her hands twisting her apron into knots. Sally, delivering eggs, swears she saw the stranger near the churchyard at midnight, carrying a lantern. Mr. Green's nowhere to be seen, his rose garden abandoned for once, which Miss Marple finds odd. He's usually out pruning by now. She visits Mr. Clement at the vicarage, sharing just enough about the oak tree find to gauge his reaction. He's nervous, mentioning that Reverend Hale, his predecessor, kept odd hours in the churchyard before retiring. Could Hale have known about Eliza's secret? Miss Marple files that away, her mental map growing. The stranger, Eliza, James, and now maybe Hale, all circling the oak tree's case. Let's dig deeper into the leather case. Back home, Miss Marple examines it under her lamp. The monogram suggests James, but the lock's too sturdy for her to pick without risking damage. She rereads the letters, finding one with a clue. Eliza, the gift is yours to guard, but never open it. It's our shame, shame. That word sticks with her. The 1918 scandal rumors hinted at Eliza running off with a man, maybe James, but no one mentioned a theft or crime. Miss Marple's starting to think the case holds something personal, like love letters or a keepsake, tied to a forbidden romance that forced Eliza out of St. Mary Mead. The stranger's desperation suggests it's valuable, though maybe to blackmail someone or reclaim a lost claim. She's also thinking about Mr. Green's absence and Mrs. Baker's nervousness. At the bakery, Miss Marple asks about Reverend Hale, watching Mrs. Baker's face. Hale, strict old man, always preaching about sin, she says, her voice shaky. When Miss Marple mentions Eliza, Mrs. Baker drops a teacup, muttering about silly old gossip. It's a tell Mrs. Baker knows more than she's letting on. Miss Marple's also curious about Mr. Green, who was seen near the churchyard last week, muttering about debts unpaid. Did he know about the oak tree's secret? Here's another tip. When suspects act guilty, like Mrs. Baker's dropped cup or Mr. Green's absence, don't confront them directly. Let them think you know less than you do. They'll slip up eventually by afternoon. The village is a hive of rumors. Sally's tales of the stranger's lantern have spread, and Mr. Clement's worried about more break-ins. Miss Marple hears. Mr. Green's back, pruning roses like nothing happened, but his hands are dirt-stained, not from gardening. She's betting he's been digging too, maybe looking for the same case. The leather case sits unopened in her cottage, its secrets locked tight. She's tempted to force it open, but knows the stranger's still out there, watching. She plans to keep an eye on the churchyard tonight, expecting him to return to the oak tree, unaware she's beaten him to the prize. What's next? In our next chapter, Miss Marple will open the leather case, revealing a shocking link to Eliza's scandal that pulls Mr. Green and Mrs. Baker into the mystery's heart. It's getting twistier, so don't miss it. If you're loving this suspenseful ride, hit that like button and subscribe to catch the next chapter. Comment below what's in that locked case. Let's keep sleuthing together. The sun dips low over St. Mary Mead, painting the churchyard's ancient oak in hues of gold and shadow, but the village is far from peaceful. Miss Marple's discovery of the leather case buried beneath the oak, marked with the initials JT, has tightened the knot of this mystery. The parish ledger, Eliza Thorne's letters, and the note about a gift hidden in the vicarage point to a scandal that drove Eliza from the village in 1918. The stranger in the wide-brimmed hat, with his limp and glinting ring, is clearly after the case, and Miss Marple's suspicions are growing about Mr. Green's dirt-stained hands and Mrs. Baker's nervous denials. Today, we're diving into the moment Miss Marple opens the locked case, uncovering a shocking link to Eliza's scandal that pulls Mr. Green and Mrs. Baker deeper into the web. If you're hooked on this twisty, cozy mystery, smash that like button and let's crack open the truth together. Miss Marple's parlour is her sanctuary, the table a mosaic of clues, the locked tin box from the vicarage, Eliza's letters begging to keep it hidden, the parish ledger with its note about meeting at the oak, and now the leather case, heavy with promise. The case's Monogram likely. James Thorne suggests it holds the gift Eliza guarded, tied to a scandal that stirred the stranger's desperate search. She's also thinking about Mrs. Baker's dropped teacup when Eliza's name came up, and Mr. Green's sudden absence after muttering about debts unpaid. The village is buzzing Sally's tales of the stranger's lantern in the churchyard, and Mr. Clement's worries about break-ins are spreading like wildfire. Miss Marple, calm as ever, knows the case holds the key, but opening it could draw the stranger closer. She decides to risk it, using a hairpin to pick the lock, her fingers steady despite the stakes. Let's set the scene. It's evening, and Miss Marple's drawn the curtains, her lamp casting a soft glow over the leather case. The lock is old but stubborn, scratched from someone's earlier attempt, likely the stranger's crowbar work. After a few careful twists, the clasp clicks open, revealing a velvet lining cradling a silver locket, a folded letter, and a small, tarnished key. Her heart skips the key, looks like it might fit the vicarage's tin box. The locket, engraved with E.T., holds a faded photo of a young woman, likely Eliza, and a man with a familiar face, possibly James. The letter, in Eliza's handwriting, is a bombshell. James, I hid the locket as you asked, but Reverend Hale knows. He says it's a sin, and I must leave. Forgive me. Miss Marple's mind races. Reverend Hale, the strict vicar, was part of Eliza's scandal, and the locket's the gift they hid. Here's where Miss Marple's brilliance shines. She doesn't just see the locket and letter. She sees a story. The letter suggests Eliza and James were in love, but Hale's disapproval forced her out. The locket, a symbol of their bond, was hidden to protect their secret. But why is the stranger after it now? She tries the tarnished key in the tin box from the vicarage. It fits, unlocking a bundle of love letters between Eliza and James, written in 1918. One mentions a promise to meet in London, but James never came. Something kept him away. Miss Marple's thinking about the scandal, rumours. Was it just a forbidden romance, or something more? The stranger's desperation suggests the locket has value beyond sentiment, maybe a clue to a hidden fortune or a family secret. Want a sleuth like her? Here's a tip. When a clue seems personal, like a locket, look for what it represents. It's not just jewelry, it's a key to someone's past. Back in the village, the gossip's reaching fever pitch. Mrs. Baker's bakery is packed, but she's quieter than usual, her eyes darting when Sally mentions the stranger's lantern. Mr. Green's back to pruning roses, but his hands are still dirty, and he snaps at a customer asking about the churchyard. Miss Marple visits the bakery, casually mentioning Reverend Hale. Mrs. Baker's face pales. She admits Hale was her uncle, and Eliza was her cousin. She was wild, ran off with some man, Mrs. Baker says, but her trembling hands betray. More. Miss Marple doesn't push, but she's sure Mrs. Baker knows about the locket. She's also curious about Mr. Green, who was Hale's gardener in 1918. Did he see something in the churchyard back then? Let's dive deeper into the locket's significance. Miss Marple examines the photo inside a young Eliza, smiling, next to a man with a distinctive ring on his left hand, matching the stranger's. Could the stranger be James, or his kin, hunting the locket for revenge or redemption? The love letters mention a debt James owed Hale, possibly why he never met Eliza in London. Miss Marple's starting to think the scandal wasn't just about love. Maybe Hale blackmailed James, or Eliza stole something to protect him. The stranger's limp and ring suggest he's older, maybe from that era, but his crowbar tactics scream desperation. She's also recalling Sally's story of the stranger's small bag. Could it hold tools to dig for more clues under the oak? Miss Marple decides to test her theory. She visits Mr. Green, asking about his time with Hale. He's cagey, muttering about silly old stories, but his eyes flick to the churchyard. When she mentions the oak tree, he drops his shears, claiming he's tired. It's a tell he knows something. Miss Marple's mental map is crystallizing. Eliza and James hid the locket. Hale intervened, and now the stranger's chasing it, with Mrs. Baker and Mr. Green caught in the web. Here's another tip. When suspects dodge questions, like Mr. Green's dropped shears, note what triggers them. It's a breadcrumb to the truth. By nightfall, the village is on edge. Mr. Clement's planning to board up the vicarage tighter, and Sally's stopped her egg deliveries, scared of the funny hat man. Miss Marple, back home, keeps the locket, and letters hidden, the tin box relocked. She's planning to watch the churchyard again, betting the stranger will return, thinking the locket's still buried. The mystery's tightening, and she's ready to pull the next thread, even if it means facing the stranger head-on. What's next? In our next chapter, Miss Marple will confront the stranger in the churchyard, sparking a revelation that ties the locket to a betrayal that's haunted St. Mary Mead for decades. It's getting intense, so don't miss it. If you're loving this mystery, hit that like button and subscribe to catch the next chapter. Comment below, do you think the stranger is James or someone else from Eliza's past? Let's keep sleuthing together. The night wraps St. Mary Mead in a velvet chill. The churchyard's ancient oak casting long, eerie shadows under a sliver of moon. Miss Marple's discovery of the silver locket and love letters in the leather case has unveiled a scandal from 1918, tying Eliza Thorne's forbidden romance with James to a gift that drove her from the village. The stranger in the wide-brimmed hat, with his limp and glinting ring, is hunting this locket. And Miss Marple's sure he's connected to James or the debt he owed. Reverend Hale, Mrs. Baker's trembling hands, and Mr. Green's dirt-stained fingers hint they know more than they're saying, while Sally's tales of the funny hat man keep the village on edge. Tonight, Miss Marple's ready to confront the stranger in the churchyard, where a shocking revelation will link the locket to a betrayal that's haunted St. Mary Mead for decades. If you're hooked on this cozy mystery, smash that like button and let's face the shadows together. Miss Marple's parlour is a quiet war room, her table cluttered with clues, the locked tin box, Eliza's love letters, the parish ledger, the leather case, and the silver locket with its photos of Eliza and a man likely James wearing a ring. Like the stranger's, the letter's mention of a debt to Reverend Hale and Eliza's confession that he forced her to leave suggest a betrayal, not just a romance gone wrong. Miss Marple's mind is racing, the stranger's desperate. Search his crowbar marks on the vicarage door, and his buried ledger point to a man chasing a secret worth risking everything for. She's also thinking about Mrs. Baker, who admitted Eliza was her cousin, and Mr. Green, Hale's old gardener, whose nervous muttering about debts, unpaid ties him to the churchyard oak. She decides to stake out the churchyard tonight, betting the stranger will return, thinking the locket's still buried. Let's set the scene. It's just past 10, and St. Mary Mead is silent. The churchyard a maze of gravestones and shadows. Miss Marple, in her dark tweed coat, slips into the churchyard, hiding behind a yew tree with a clear view of the oak. Her heart steady, but her senses a sharp. She's no stranger to danger, though she prefers a teacup to a chase. The air is crisp, carrying the faint scent of damp earth. Then she sees him. The stranger, his wide-brimmed hat low, limping slightly as he approaches. The oak. He's carrying a small shovel, his ring glinting in the moonlight. He kneels, digging where Miss Marple found the leather case, his movements frantic. She steps forward, her voice calm but firm. "Looking for something, sir?" The stranger freezes, his eyes wide under the hat's brim, and she catches a glimpse of a weathered face, lined with years and worry. The confrontation is electric. "You're meddling, old woman," he growls, but his voice shakes. Miss Marple mentions the locket and Eliza's letters. "Is it James you're after, or his debt?" she asks. The stranger's hand tightens on the shovel, but he doesn't swing. Instead, he laughs, bitter. "You're too clever, Miss Marple. It's not James, it's what he left behind." He admits he's Thomas, James's brother, sent to find the locket because it holds proof of a betrayal that ruined their family. He won't say more, but his limp and ring confirm he's the man from the photo, aged by time. Miss Marple's mind races. Thomas, not James, is the stranger, chasing a locket that's more than a love token. Want a sleuth like her? Here's a tip. When confronting a suspect, stay calm and drop a specific detail like the locket too. See how they react. Their flinch or pause often tells the truth. Thomas bolts before Miss Marple can press further, disappearing into the churchyard's shadows. She doesn't chase, she knows he'll be back. Instead, she checks the oak's base, finding fresh dirt but no new clues. Back home, she re-examines the locket's photo and letters. One letter mentions Hale demanding a payment for silence, hinting he blackmailed Eliza and James over their romance. The locket, she's sure, holds something more, maybe an inscription or hidden compartment. Using a magnifying glass, she finds a tiny catch inside the locket, revealing a folded slip of paper. It's a promissory note, signed by James to Hale. For a staggering sum in 1918 proof, Hale extorted James, likely forcing Eliza to flee. This is huge. The locket's not just sentimental, it's evidence of Hale's corruption. The village is a tinderbox of gossip. Mrs. Baker's bakery is quiet, her usual chatter replaced by nervous glances. Sally swears she saw the stranger Thomas near the vicarage again. Carrying a lantern, Mr. Green's back to pruning, but his hands shake, and he avoids Miss Marple's gaze when she passes. She visits Mrs. Baker, asking about Hale's time as vicar. Mrs. Baker's apron twisting hits a peak. "He was my uncle, but cruel. Drove Elisa away for loving the wrong man." Miss Marple nods, mentioning the promissory note. Mrs. Baker gasps, admitting she knew Hale was harsh, but not a blackmailer. She reveals Eliza sent her a letter years ago, saying the locket was her shame and salvation. Miss Marple's mental map sharpens Hale's blackmail, Eliza's flight, and Thomas's search are all tied to the locket. Let's dig deeper. The promissory note suggests Hale used his authority to extort James, possibly over a scandal bigger than a romance. Miss Marple's thinking about Mr. Green, who worked for Hale and muttered about debts unpaid. Did he know about the blackmail? She visits him, asking about the churchyard oak in 1918. He flinches, saying, "I saw things I shouldn't." Hale meeting James, arguing. It's a breakthrough. Green witnessed the extortion. Miss Marple's also curious about Mrs. Baker's dropped letter to the vicarage. Could it be from Thomas, seeking Eliza's locket? Here's another tip. When clues pile up, like the note and locket, connect them to people's motives. Thomas wants the locket to clear his family's name, but Green and Mrs. Baker may want it buried. By dawn, St. Mary Mead is restless. Mr. Clement's planning to search the vicarage for more clues. And Sally's stopped talking about the stranger, scared by his lantern. Miss Marple, knitting to calm her thoughts, knows Thomas will try again maybe at the vicarage, where the tin box still sits. She's ready to set a trap, using the locket as bait to draw him out. What's next? In our next chapter, Miss Marple will set a trap for Thomas, uncovering a deeper betrayal that ties Hale's corruption to a village secret still haunting St. Mary Mead. It's getting juicy, so don't miss it. If you're loving this mystery, hit that like button and subscribe to catch the next chapter. Comment below's Thomas after justice or something darker. Let's keep sleuthing together. The fog rolls thick over St. Mary Mead, shrouding the churchyard and Willow Lane in a ghostly veil that seems to whisper of buried truths. Miss Marple's confrontation with the stranger revealed as Thomas, James Thorne's brother, has tightened. The mystery's grip, the silver locket, with its promissory note proving Reverend Hale's blackmail of James and Eliza in 1918, points to a scandal that forced Eliza's flight from the village. Thomas's desperate search for the locket, his limp and glinting ring, and his bitter claim that it holds proof of his family's ruin have Miss Marple's mind spinning. Mrs. Baker's admission that Eliza was her cousin, coupled with Mr. Green's confession of witnessing Hale's shady dealings, suggests the village is hiding more than a love story gone wrong. Today, we're diving into Miss Marple's daring plan to set a trap for Thomas, uncovering a deeper betrayal that ties Hale's corruption to a secret still haunting St. Mary Mead. If you're gripped by this cozy mystery, smash that like button and let's spring the trap together. Miss Marple's parlour is a quiet command centre. Her table a puzzle of clues. The tin box from the vicarage, Eliza's love letters, the parish ledger, the leather case, the silver locket, and the promissory note exposing Hale's extortion. She's piecing together the story. James and Eliza's forbidden romance in 1918 led to Hale demanding payment for silence, forcing Eliza to flee and hide the locket as proof of his corruption. Thomas, James's brother, is after the locket to clear his family's name. But Miss Marple suspects there's more. Why else would he break into the vicarage with a crowbar? She's also thinking about Mrs. Baker's nervous teacup and Mr. Green's dirt-stained hands, hinting they know more about Hale's schemes. Sally's tales of Thomas's lantern in the churchyard keep the village buzzing, and Miss Marple decides to use the locket as bait to draw Thomas out, hoping to learn his full motive. Let's set the scene. Miss Marple spreads word through Mrs. Baker's bakery that she's found a valuable item in the churchyard and plans to examine it at the vicarage tonight with Mr. Clement. It's a calculated risk. She knows Thomas is watching, likely through village gossip. She hides the real locket in her cottage, replacing it with a similar one from her jewelry box as a decoy. At dusk, she heads to the vicarage, the decoy locket in her pocket, the tin box still locked in Mr. Clement's safe. The vicarage is dimly lit, its creaky halls echoing with tension. Mr. Clement, nervous but trusting, agrees to play along, keeping the door slightly ajar to lure Thomas. Miss Marple sits by the study window, her knitting needles clicking to calm her nerves, her eyes on Willow Lane. As the clock nears 9, a shadow moves outside Thomas, his wide-brimmed hat unmistakable, limping toward the vicarage. He slips through the back door, crowbar in hand, unaware Miss Marple's watching. She steps into the study, the decoy locket gleaming on the desk. "Looking for this, Mr. Thorne?" she asks, her voice steady. Thomas freezes, his ring glinting as he grips the crowbar. "You've no right to it," he snarls, but his eyes betray fear. MissMarple.com, as ever, mentions the promissory note and hails blackmail. "Is it justice you want, or something else?" she probes. Thomas hesitates, then spills. The locket holds a second note, hidden in a secret compartment, naming Hales, accomplice a villager who helped him extort James, ruining the Thorne family. "Want a sleuth like Miss Marple? Here's a tip. Set a trap with a decoy. But always watch the suspect's eyes. They reveal what they're really after." Thomas lunges for the decoy locket, but Miss Marple's ready. Mr. Clement steps in, blocking the door, and Miss Marple presses. "Who's the accomplice, Thomas? Someone still here?" His face twists, and he mutters a name, Mr. Green. Miss Marple's heart skips. Green's nervous pruning and dirt-stained hands make sense now. Thomas says Green was Hale's gardener and spy, feeding him secrets about Eliza and James for a cut of the extortion money. When James couldn't pay, Hale forced Eliza to leave, and Green buried the locket under the oak to keep it from James. Thomas, learning this years later, came to St. Mary Mead to expose Green and clear his brother's name. But he won't say. How he knew the locket's location, someone tipped him off. Let's dive deeper. Miss Marple's mind races, Green's muttering about debts unpaid, and his absence after the oak tree dig point to guilt. She's also thinking about Mrs. Baker, Eliza's cousin, who dropped a letter addressed to the vicarage. Was it meant for Thomas or Green? She asks Thomas about the tip-off. He's cagey, saying only that a friend sent him a note about the oak. Miss Marple's betting it's Mrs. Baker. She knew Eliza's story and might have wanted the truth out. Back in the village, gossips at a fever pitch. Sally's stopped her egg deliveries, scared of Thomas's lantern, and Mr. Green's rose garden is deserted again. Miss Marple visits Mrs. Baker, asking about the dropped letter. Her apron twisting hits a peak. It was for Mr. Clement, about church funds. She lies, but her eyes dart away. Miss Marple doesn't push, he knows Mrs. Baker's hiding a connection to Thomas. Here's another tip. When a suspect names another, like Thomas naming Green, check their story against the clues. Miss Marple recalls Green's flinch when she mentioned the oak and his dirt-stained hands, not from roses, but from digging. She visits Green's cottage, finding him burning papers in his garden. "Enough, Mr. Green," she says, mentioning Hale's blackmail. He collapses, admitting he helped Hale spy on Eliza, but claims he buried the locket to protect her, not to hide it. Miss Marple's not convinced his burned papers suggest he's still covering tracks. She finds a singed note among the ashes, addressed to Thomas, hinting at the locket's location. Mrs. Baker wrote it, confirming she's the tip-off. The village is a powder keg now. Mr. Clements locking the vicarage tighter, and Sally. Tales of Thomas's lantern spread fear. Miss Marple, back home, examines the real locket, finding the second note Thomas mentioned. It names Green as Hale's accomplice and hints at a larger secretive, stolen heirloom Hale sold to fund his schemes. The mystery's tightening, and Miss Marple's ready to confront Green and Mrs. Baker together, forcing the full truth out. What's next? In our next chapter, Miss Marple will gather the suspects, revealing the stolen heirloom and the betrayal. That links Hale, Green, and Mrs. Baker to Eliza's ruin. It's getting intense, so don't miss it. If you're loving this mystery, hit that like button and subscribe to catch the next chapter. Comment below, is Mrs. Baker protecting Green, or her own secrets? Let's keep sleuthing together. The evening chill settles over St. Mary Mead, wrapping the village in a tense hush as if it's bracing for a storm. Miss Marple's trap for Thomas, the stranger in the wide-brimmed hat, has unveiled a web of betrayal, a silver locket hiding, a promissory note and a second note naming Mr. Green as Reverend Hale's accomplice in a 1918 blackmail scheme that ruined Eliza Thorne and her lover, James. Thomas's desperate hunt for the locket, Mrs. Baker's secret note tipping him off, and Mr. Green's burned papers point to a deeper secret and heirloom Hale stole to fund his corruption. Now haunting the village, the whispers of Sally's funny hat man and Mr. Clement's fears of more break-ins have St. Mary Mead on edge. Today, we're diving into Miss Marple's bold move to gather the suspects demos, Mr. Green and Mrs. Baker in a dramatic showdown at the vicarage, where she revealed the stolen heirloom and the betrayal that links them all to Eliza's downfall. If you're gripped by this cozy mystery, smash that like button and let's unravel the truth together. Miss Marple's parlour is a quiet battleground, her table a mosaic of clues, the tin box, Eliza's love letters, the parish ledger, the leather case, the silver locket, and the notes exposing Hale's blackmail and Mr. Green's role as his spy. The second note, found in the locket's hidden compartment, hints at a stolen heirloom, a valuable item Hale sold to cover his tracks, leaving James and Eliza to bear the shame. Miss Marple's mind is sharp. Thomas, James's brother, wants the locket to expose Green and clear his family's name. But Mrs. Baker's tipped-off note and Mr. Green's burned papers suggest they're both hiding something bigger. She's also thinking about Sally's tales of Thomas's lantern and Mr. Clement's growing unease about the vicarage's safety. To force the truth, Miss Marple plans a gathering at the vicarage, using the locket as bait to draw out confessions. Let's set the scene. It's dusk, and Miss Marple, in her tweed coat, arrives at the vicarage with Mr. Clement, who's nervous, but trusts her plan. She's asked Mrs. Baker to come, claiming it's about village history, and left a note for Mr. Green, mentioning the oak tree and Hale. She's also tipped off Sally to watch for Thomas, knowing the girl's chatter will reach him. The vicarage study is lit by a single lamp, the tin box and decoy locket on the desk, the real locket hidden in Miss Marple's pocket. Mrs. Baker arrives first, her apron whisking at fever pitch, her eyes darting to the decoy. Mr. Green follows, his hands still dirt-stained, his face pale when he sees the setup. Thomas slips in last, his wide-brimmed hat low, his limp more pronounced under stress. The air crackles as Miss Marple begins. We're here to talk about Eliza Thorne and a stolen heirloom. The room tenses. Mrs. Baker gasps. Mr. Green grips his chair, and Thomas's ring glints as he clenches his fist. Miss Marple, calm as ever, holds up the decoy locket, watching their reactions. This holds proof of Reverend Hale's blackmail, she says, and Mr. Green's part in it. Green sputters, denying everything, but his shaking hands betray him. She turns to Mrs. Baker. You tipped Thomas off about the locket, didn't you? Mrs. Baker's face crumples. She admits sending the note, saying she wanted Eliza's story told to clear her cousin's name. Thomas interrupts, his voice bitter. Green helped Hale ruin my brother. The locket proves it tanned where the heirloom went. Miss Marple nods, pulling out the real locket and reading the second note aloud, naming Green as Hale's spy and mentioning a silver chalice Hale stole from the church, sold to a London dealer. Want to sleuth like Miss Marple? Here's a tip. Gather suspects together and drop a key detail, like the chalice, to see who breaks first. Mr. Green cracks. "I didn't know Hale would sell it," he cries, admitting he spied on Eliza and James for Hale, who caught them meeting the churchyard. Hale used the promissory note to extort James, but when James couldn't pay, Hale stole the church's silver chalice, priceless heirloom, and blamed James, forcing Eliza to flee to protect him. Green buried the locket under the oak to hide his role, but Mrs. Baker, Eliza's cousin, found out years later through a letter Eliza sent before her death. Mrs. Baker's note to Thomas was her attempt to expose Green, but she didn't expect him to break into the vicarage. Thomas, furious, says the chalice's sale ruined his family's reputation. James was branded a thief and died in shame. He came to St. Mary Mead to find the locket and track the chalice, hoping to restore his brother's name. Let's dig deeper. Miss Marple's mind races. The chalice explains the debt unpaid Green muttered about, and Mrs. Baker's guilt over Eliza's exile drove her to help Thomas. But there's a missing piece. Where's the chalice now? The note hints it's in London, but Thomas's desperation suggests he knows more. Miss Marple asks him directly, "Who bought the chalice?" Thomas hesitates, then admits a dealer named Carter has it, but he needs the locket's note to prove it was stolen. Miss Marple's also thinking about Sally's lantern stories. Thomas has been searching the vicarage for more clues, maybe a record of the sale. She checks the tin box, using the key from the leather case, and finds a church inventory from 1918 listing the chalice as missing. It's proof Hole covered his tracks with Green's help. The village is a whirlwind of gossip. Sally's tales of the funny hat man have Mr. Clement boarding up the vicarage, and Mrs. Baker's bakery is quiet, her customers sensing her distress. Miss Marple visits Green's cottage, finding more burned papers, letters from Hale, promising Green money for silence. She confronts Mrs. Baker, who admits Eliza's letter begged her to protect the locket, but she sent it to Thomas out of guilt. Here's another tip. When suspects confess, like Green and Mrs. Baker, look for what they're still hiding. Miss Marple's sure Thomas knows where the chalice is, but he's not telling everything by night. The vicarage meeting ends with Green promising to confess to the police, and Mrs. Baker, in tears, vowing to honor Eliza's memory. Thomas, though, slips away, his eyes on the locket. Miss Marple lets him go. She's got one more trap to set, this time in London, to find the chalice and close the case. What's next? In our next chapter, Miss Marple will chase the chalice to London, confronting Thomas and uncovering a final twist that ties the betrayal to St. Mary Mead's heart. It's getting wild, so don't miss it. If you're loving this mystery, hit that like button and subscribe to catch the next chapter. Comment below, will Thomas get the chalice, or is he hiding another secret? Let's keep sleuthing together. The dawn light filters through the mist of St. Mary Mead, casting a soft glow on Willow Lane, but the village hums with a tension that refuses to settle. Miss Marple's dramatic gathering at the vicarage has unraveled a tangled web of betrayal. The silver locket, with its hidden note exposing Mr. Green as Reverend Hale's accomplice in a 1918 blackmail scheme, revealed a stolen church chalice that ruined Eliza Thorne and her lover. Thomas, James's brother, admitted his quest for the locket to track the chalice sold by Hale to a London dealer named Carter to clear his family's name. Mrs. Baker's guilty confession about tipping Thomas off and Mr. Green's tearful admission of spying for Hale have left the village reeling. But Thomas's sudden slip into the night suggests he's not done. Sally's tales of the funny hat man and Mr. Clement's fears of more trouble keeps St. Mary Mead on edge. Today, we're following Miss Marple as she chases the chalice to London, uncovering a deeper layer of deception that ties Thomas's mission to a secret still buried in the village's heart. If you're hooked on this cozy mystery, smash that like button and let's hit the streets of London together. Miss Marple's parlour is a haven of clues, her table a testament to her sleuthing, the tin box from the vicarage, Eliza's love letters, the parish ledger, the leather case, the silver locket, and the notes exposing Hale's blackmail and the stolen chalice. The promissory note proved Hale extorted James, forcing Eliza to flee, while the second note named Mr. Green as his spy, and pointed to the chalice, a priceless church heirloom sold to Carter in London. Miss Marple's mind is a whirlwind. Thomas's desperation, his limp and glinting ring, and his knowledge of Carter suggests he's closer to the chalice than he let on. Mrs. Baker's admission that she tipped Thomas Oftribin by guilt over her cousin Eliza's exile and Mr. Green's confession about burying the locket under the oak tree to hide his roll tie the village to the crime. But Thomas's escape from the vicarage, his eyes fixed on the locket, tells Miss Marple he's headed to London to confront Carter. She decides to follow, knowing the chalice holds the final key to the mystery. Let's set the scene. Miss Marple, in her sensible tweed coat and hat, boards the morning train to London, her bag holding the locket, the promissory note, and a notebook of her observations. The village is still buzzing. Sally's stopped her egg deliveries, scared of Thomas's lantern, and Mrs. Baker's bakery is quiet, her apron twisting, replaced by a weary silence. Mr. Green's promised to confess to the police, but Miss Marple, not sure he's told everything. His burned papers hint at more secrets. On the train, she reviews the clues, Eliza's letters about a promise to James, the note in the locket naming Green, and Thomas's claim that the chalice's sale ruined his family. She's also thinking about Carter, the London dealer. Why would Hallie sell a church heirloom to him, and how did Thomas know? She plans to visit her old friend, Mrs. Hartnell, in Bloomsbury, who knows London's antique trade and might point her to Carter in London. The bustle of the city contrasts with St. Mary Mead's calm. Miss Marple navigates the crowded streets to Mrs. Hartnell's flat, where tea and gossip await. Mrs. Hartnell, a chatty widow with a knack for remembering faces, lights up when Miss Marple mentions Carter. Shady fellow, runs a shop in Soho, deals in rare items, she says, adding that Carter's known for buying stolen goods under the table. Miss Marple shows her the locket's note, and Mrs. Hartnell gasps. I saw a chalice like that in Carter's shop years ago, silver, with crosses etched on it. He said it came from a village church. This is huge proof the chalice is real and still in London. Mrs. Hartnell recalls a man with a limp visiting Carter recently, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. Thomas, Miss Marple's heart rests she's on the right track. Want to sleuth like her. Here's a tip: when chasing a lead in a new place, find a local who knows the lay of the land. Like Mrs. Hartnell, they'll point you to the truth faster than any map. Miss Marple heads to Soho, where Carter's shop is tucked in a narrow alley, its windows cluttered with dusty trinkets. She steps inside, her eyes scanning for the chalice. Carter, a wiry man with shifty eyes, greets her warily. She plays the part of a curious antique collector, asking about church artifacts. Carter's cagey, but when she mentions a silver chalice from 1918, his face tightens. Don't know anything about that, he snaps, but his hands fidget. Miss Marple notices a locked cabinet behind him, its glass reflecting a glint of silver. She drops Thomas's name casually, watching Carter flinch. Never heard of him, he lies, but his eyes dart to the door. Miss Marple's sure the chalice is here, and Thomas has been too. She leaves, promising to return, but lingers nearby, watching the shop. Sure enough, Thomas arrives, his hat low, limping into Carter's shop. Miss Marple creeps closer, peering through a side window. Thomas is arguing, his voice low but heated, demanding the chalice. Carter shakes his head, pointing to the locked cabinet. Miss Marple catches a glimpse of the chalice silver, etched with crosses, just as Mrs. Hartnell described. Thomas pulls out the decoy locket, claiming it's proof of the theft, but Carter laughs, saying, "That's worthless without the real note." Miss Marple's mind races. Thomas doesn't have the real locket, she does. She's tempted to confront them, but holds back, knowing she needs more to tie Carter to Hale. Back at Mrs. Hartnell's, she digs deeper, asking about Hale's London connections. Mrs. Hartnell recalls Hale visiting a solicitor in 1918, possibly to arrange the chalice's sale. Miss Marple visits the solicitor's office, now run by a younger partner, who finds a record of Hale selling a church artifact to Carter for a hefty sum, with Green's signature as a witness. The village, meanwhile, is a powder keg. Mrs. Baker's admitted to Mr. Clement that she sent Thomas the note out of guilt, but she's hiding something. Her eyes avoid his when he asks about Hale's money. Sally swears she saw Green near the churchyard, digging again, and Miss Marple sure he's after more hidden papers. Here's another tip. When suspects are scattered, like Thomas in London and Green in the village, follow the paper trail documents like the solicitor's record or Green's signature reveal who's really pulling the strings. Miss Marple, ready to return to St. Mary Mead, the locket and solicitor's record in hand, to confront Green and Mrs. Baker one last time. By nightfall, she's on the train back, her mind piecing together the final threads. Hale's blackmail, Green's betrayal, Mrs. Baker's guilt, and Thomas's quest for the chalice. Carter's involvement confirms the chalice's location, but Thomas's desperation suggests he's hiding a final secret. Miss Marple's planning one last gathering to expose it all. What's next? In our final chapter, Miss Marple will bring Thomas, Green, and Mrs. Baker together, revealing the chalice's fate and a betrayal that shakes St. Mary Mead to its core. It's the big finale, so don't miss it. If you're loving this mystery, hit that like button and subscribe to catch the next chapter. Comment below, will Miss Marple get the chalice, or is Thomas one step ahead? Let's keep sleuthing together. The sun rises over St. Mary Mead, bathing the village in a deceptive calm that masks a storm of secrets ready to break. Miss Marple's London chase confirmed the stolen chalice's location in Carter's Soho shop, tied to Reverend Hale's 1918 blackmail of Eliza Thorne and James, with Mr. Green as his accomplice and Mrs. Baker as the guilty tip-off to Thomas, James's brother. The silver locket, with its promissory note and hidden note naming Green, holds proof of Hale's corruption and the chalice's theft, sold to fund his schemes. Thomas's desperate hunt for the locket to clear his family's name, Green's burned papers, and Mrs. Baker's nervous silence have the village on tenterhooks. Sally's tales of the funny hat man and Mr. Clement's fears of more trouble fuel the gossip. Today, we're diving into Miss Marple's final showdown, gathering Thomas, Green, and Mrs. Baker to reveal the chalice's fate and a betrayal that shakes St. Mary Mead to its core. If you're gripped by this cozy mystery, smash that like button, subscribe, and let's unravel the final truth together. Miss Marple's cottage is a quiet fortress, her table a battlefield of clues, the tin box, Eliza's letters, the parish ledger, the leather case, the locket, the promissory note, and the solicitor's record proving Hole sold the chalice to Carter with Green's help. Her mind is a tapestry of connections. Hale blackmailed James over his romance with Eliza, forcing her to flee and hide the locket as proof. Green spied for Hale, burying the locket under the oak. Mrs. Baker, Eliza's cousin, tipped Thomas off to expose Green, and Thomas, chasing the chalice in London, wants to clear his brother's name, but may have a darker motive. Miss Marple's sure the chalice is the key, but Thomas's escape from the vicarage and Carter's refusal to hand it over suggest a final secret, perhaps a betrayal within the village itself. She plans a final gathering at the church, where the chalice belongs, to force the truth into the open. Let's set the scene. It's evening, and the church is lit by flickering candles, its pews empty except for Miss Marple, Mr. Clement, Mrs. Baker, Mr. Green, and Thomas, whom Miss Marple lured with a note promising the locket's secrets. The real locket sits in her pocket, the decoy on the altar, glinting under the candlelight. Mrs. Baker's hands twist her apron. Green's face is ashen, and Thomas's limp is pronounced as he glares at the decoy. Miss Marple begins, her voice calm but piercing. This locket holds the truth about a chalice stolen from this church in 1918, and a betrayal that ruined lives. She holds up the solicitor's record, naming Hale and Green. Green slumps, muttering, "I never meant harm." Mrs. Baker sobs, admitting she sent Thomas the note to honor Eliza's wish for justice. Thomas, though, is silent, his eyes locked on the locket. Want to sleuth like Miss Marple? Here's a tip, in a showdown. Watch the silent one. Thomas's quiet rage is louder than words. Miss Marple lays out the story. Hale caught Eliza and James in the churchyard, used their romance to extort James, and when James couldn't pay, stole the chalice, framing him. Green, Hale's gardener, spied on them, earning a cut, and buried the locket to hide his role. Eliza fled, leaving the locket as proof, and Mrs. Baker, years later, tipped Thomas off, hoping to clear her cousin's name. But Miss Marple's not done. She pulls out the real locket, opening its hidden compartment to reveal a final note. Hale sold the chalice, but Green kept half the money. Green gasps, denying it, but Miss Marple points to his burned papers bank receipts she found among the ashes, showing deposits in 1918. Green breaks, admitting he took half the chalice's sale money, living quietly on it while James took the blame. Thomas lunges for the locket, shouting that money was ours. Miss Marple steps back, Mr. Clement blocking him. She reveals the final twist. Thomas isn't just after justice, he wants the chalice to sell it. Believing the money belongs to his family, he confesses. James, dying in shame, told him about Carter and the locket, begging him to reclaim their honor. But Thomas, bitter and broke, planned to sell the chalice to start over, not return it. Mrs. Baker, sobbing, admits she knew Green's secret but stayed silent to protect her family's name. MissMarple.com hands the locket and solicitors record to Mr. Clement, urging him to call the police. Green agrees to confess fully, and Thomas, defeated, slumps, his hat falling to reveal a face etched with years of resentment. The village reels as the police take Green and Thomas. Mrs. Baker, shamed but relieved, promises to help return the chalice. Miss Marple visits Carter in London the next day, using the solicitor's record to retrieve the chalice. which is restored to the church. St. Mary Mead breathes easier, but Sally's tales of the funny hat man become legend, and Mrs. Baker's bakery sees fewer customers for a while. Miss Marple, knitting in her parlour, smiles, she's seen betrayal before. But it's the little clues, like Green's receipts and Mrs. Baker's apron twisting, that cracked the case. Here's a final tip. Never ignore the small things. A dropped letter, a nervous glance. They're the threads that unravel the biggest mysteries. That's the end of our cozy adventure in St. Mary Mead. And what a ride it's been. If you loved sleuthing with Miss Marple, give this video a massive thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more mysteries. Comment below, did you guess Green's betrayal, or did Thomas's greed surprise you? Share your favorite clue, and let's keep the sleuthing spirit alive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next mystery.